I was out of shape. I weighed 225 pounds. I was a bigger guy. From a 5-hour marathon runner to a sub 3-hour marathoner, that's what we're talking about today. I'm going to tell you guys how I did it and what's the most important things for you to consider. September 2022, I ran a 4-hour 48 marathon. It was my first marathon. I was down from a weight of 250 and I went out and I did the Manitoba Marathon. At that point, I was able to do about 10-minute miles. I was able to do 10 to 12 10-minute miles. I wasn't sure how the marathon would go. I was hoping that I'd be able to do kind of a 4 hour and a half marathon, but I wasn't. I wasn't in good enough shape. As I realized on race day, 10 miles aren't enough to do a marathon. I had started out jogging. I weighed 250 pounds. I was doing like half a mile, then I do a mile, then I do 2 miles, and I slowly built that up to 5 and then 10 miles. And how I did that was working on my long jogs on the weekend. I would stretch out my Saturday jog. I would stretch it out by 1 mile at a time, and I got it to about 10 or 12 miles. I was able to do 10 or 12 miles consecutively jogging 10-minute miles. And for me, that was pretty impressive. And I would go out. I didn't know anything about jogging back then. All I cared about was getting miles in. I would do about 4 to 5 jogs per week. They would range from 30 minutes to 3 to 5 miles, and then my long jog on the weekend. All I focused on was slow, steady miles. That was in order for me to be able to do one marathon. That 448 ended up taking me way longer than I thought. I kind of hit a wall at miles 20 and I slowed down. I had to walk, my pace slowed, and I kind of labored through and I did 448. But I learned my lesson. I knew what I needed to do. For now, if you're just trying to get one marathon in, build a bigger base. I knew I needed to build a bigger base. Start with that. The speed doesn't matter. The speed will come later. So I started setting a goal. So I said, what do I want to do? I want to run a sub 3-hour marathon. I want to qualify for Boston. I felt like that was probably going to take me 3 years. I didn't know, 3 to 5 years. I set that as a goal. I knew I needed to run a 3:05, give or take, to qualify for Boston, and sub 3 was kind of a stretch goal. So I said, how am I going to do that? I'm going to do it by setting intermittent goals, and those are going to be races. So I signed up for my next race, was about 3 months out. I did the Tucson Marathon, and there I set a goal. I'm going to break 4 hours. I started jogging a lot more. Then I looked at plans, and I downloaded a plan online. It was a classic 12-week plan, and I said, I'm going to follow this. And the plan was pretty simple. It was about 5 jogs a week. There was some cross training in there, but on the weekend, my jogs would stretch out. It would go 2-week increments where it would increase and then 1 pullback week. So you do more miles, never more than 5 or 10% more miles, and then I'd pull back and I'd do less miles the following week for an easier week. Very simple. It was a Hal Higdon plan that I did, and I didn't know any better, and that's what I did. A lot of miles though. I had to commit to those miles. I was doing 30 plus miles a week back then. That was a lot of miles for me. I do 4 days per week of about 3 to 5 and then a longer jog on the weekend, and I stretch that out. I stretch it out all the way to 20 miles. So my 20-mile jog would never be fast. My 20-mile jog was actually slower than most of my other jogs. Just get the miles in on your long jog. The pace doesn't matter. Just get the miles in. The speed will come later. Pace is irrelevant on your long jogs. Just get the miles in. I jogged, I increased what I was able to do, and now I was able to do like 20 miles at 10-minute miles. And what happened on race day is I had built up enough speed, I'd lost some weight. Now I was able to do a 4-hour marathon. I did 3 hours and 58. To lose the weight, I also started tracking what I eating. I was a guy who would eat and drink whatever. And next thing you know, once you start tracking what you eat, that was very easy for me to lose the weight. If you're committed to jogging and you're doing 5 jogs a week and you're eating healthy, you will lose weight. So if you're overweight, I promise you will lose weight if you just commit to tracking what you eat, figuring out what are the danger spots, and an exercise routine of 5 days a week, you're going to lose weight. Once I did that 358, I knew I needed to increase my speed. Now, how was I going to do that? I started doing hills, tempos, and intervals during my week. So I kept my weekend long jogs. And again, I set up a next race, signed up for another race 3 months out, and I set that as a goal. I like the intermittent goals. You could see something 3-4 months away. You get time to practice and develop and look forward to something, look forward to this race. So I would always set intermittent goals 3-4 months out. That way you're not losing You're not getting lost in the forest. You can still see the trees, right? You can see that goal that's immediately in front of you. That next race is 3 months out. That next race, I'm going to run the Tucson Marathon or the Las Vegas Marathon or whatever it may be. And you're committed to that. And it's exciting. The journey of getting to that marathon is really exciting. And what happens is when you're progressing, it feels awesome. It feels so good to progress and to do better and to compare your workouts to the prior week. My heart rate was lower this week. I feel way better. I also started working out. I did strength and mobility 2 to 3 days a week. Now, most of that was kind of circuit training. I did some weightlifting, and eventually I hired a personal trainer for that, but you can do that on your own. Lifting weights 2 to 3 times a week. I was jogging 5 times a week, eventually became 6, and eventually became 7. Tempos, intervals, and hills. Hills are pretty simple. You run up a hill, either on a treadmill or on a hill, and then you kind of run down, and you repeat that process many times. Tempos, you're going to run at a fast pace for a period of time. Intervals, you're doing either 1 mile or 800 meters or 400 meters fast with kind of an equivalent rest period. And all of those are building up speed. And they're fun. They were different than everything else I was doing. Before then, I was just running 10-minute miles. Now I was trying to build speed by racing for a minute or 2 or 5. And that was really fun. I ran a 3:23 at the Las Vegas Marathon about 3 months later. And now I had my race set. I signed up for my next race. It was the Big Bear Revel Series Marathon in November 2023, 14 months after I had run my first marathon and run a 4:48. And now I was ready to focus hard on actively getting to the Boston qualifier. So that meant 7 days a week I was running. You could do 6 easily. I was also doing 2 to 3 weight lifting sessions per week. My slow days were something like 30 to 50 minutes of jogging at a really slow pace. That became, now your slow pace will increase over time because you're getting better and better at running. But those are easy miles that I felt like I could run forever. So whatever that pace is, feel you could run forever, I would do those 2 or 3 times per week. I would have my run club on Saturdays, which was my fun run where I would run with buddies. And my big workout on Sunday, which was my long run. My long runs on Sundays looked something like this. So 1 mile warm up, 7 miles, a minute faster than race pace, 5 miles at race pace, and then 1 mile cool down. Call those fast finish, a fast finish workout. And next week I would add 2 miles to that. Just kept doing that. And eventually I was doing 20 miles. I built up that long jog on the weekend. You're always focusing on the one jog that you can compare it to. And that for me was my Sunday. I moved it to Sunday and that was my long jog. Saturday was fun day run club, which is the jog I look forward to the most with my buddies. Wednesday I would do hills or tempos or intervals, kind of a fun workout. And sometimes I do 2 of those a week, and the rest were just nice, easy jogs. I did that religiously, nonstop, for 14 months, and I ran a 2-hour and 56 marathon. I'm not anything special. I weighed 250 pounds. I'm just a regular dude. You guys can do it too.